Think it's too late to start over? This video will challenge everything you believe because your 60s aren't the end. They're the beginning of your greatest superpower yet. You're not late, you're ripening. Picture this. You're standing in your garden, watching a peach slowly turn golden on the branch. It's taken its sweet time. The sun's been relentless, storms have come and gone, but now it's perfect. Not early, not late, just right. That's you at 60. We live in a world that celebrates fast learners, fast money, fast fame. But nobody ever built wisdom in a hurry. Nobody ever became deeply themselves by age 25. Yet somehow, society makes you feel like if you haven't made it by 40, you're expired. Nonsense. In fact, studies from Harvard and Stanford show that human beings continue to develop emotionally, socially, and intellectually well into their 60s and 70s. There's even a term for it. Crystallized intelligence, your ability to use accumulated knowledge and life experience to solve real-world problems. It peaks later in life. That means your brain isn't slowing down. It's shifting gears. Let me say that again for the voice in your head whispering, too old. You're not decaying, you're distilling. Like aged whiskey, like fine maple syrup. And while the world applauds the early bloomers, remember this. The late bloomers are the ones who outlast the applause. You've spent decades collecting pieces of yourself through heartbreak, joy, failure, love. Now you finally have the full puzzle. Most people only get the corners. So if you're sitting there thinking you've missed the boat, let me offer you a better metaphor. You are the boat. The storm has passed. The sails are full. The ocean is wide open. You're not late. You're ripening into exactly who you were meant to be. Your older brain is smarter than ever here. As a wild fact that might surprise you, the human brain doesn't peak at 25. That's just the marketing from energy drink companies and Silicon Valley interns. The truth? Your brain has a second wind end. It kicks in around your 60s. Let me explain. There are two types of intelligence: fluid intelligence and crystallized intelligence. Fluid is fast and flashy. It helps you solve puzzles, memorize names, multitask at 100 taps per second. It peaks early, sure, but crystallized intelligence? That's the deep, slow-burning wisdom that only shows up with time. It's knowing what actually matters. It's seeing the red flags before they wave. It's saying, I've been through worse, and meaning it. Neuroscientists from the University of Toronto found that older adults, especially those over 60, make better long-term decisions because their brains integrate emotion and logic more effectively. In short, your brain becomes less reactive and more reflective. It doesn't jump at shiny distractions. It sees the bigger picture. Ever notice how older people say less but mean more? That's not coincidence. That's brain evolution. And let's talk about emotional regulation. A 2020 study in psychological science revealed that people in their 60s and 70s reported higher emotional satisfaction, lower anxiety, and more stable moods than those in their 30s. You're calmer, not because you're tired, but because you've learned what's worth your energy. So if you're forgetting where you left your keys, but remembering exactly how to comfort a grieving friend, that's not a loss. That's a gain. That's your brain reallocating resources to what truly matters. Let the young ones chase trends. You've got insight. You've got radar. You've got the kind of smarts that can't be Googled. And guess what? You're only just tapping into it. Your greatest asset, painful experience. You don't become uncheckable by reading self-help books. You get there by falling apart and surviving anyway. Let's be honest, by the time you're 60, life has already thrown a few left hooks, maybe more than a few. Divorce, death, career dead ends, children growing distant, health scares that made you question everything. You've faced storms that would drown a younger version of you, but here's the beautiful, uncomfortable truth. Those storms didn't destroy you. They refined you. There's a Japanese art form called kintsugi, the practice of repairing broken pottery with gold. The cracks aren't hidden, they're highlighted. The flaws are transformed into something more beautiful, more valuable, more unique. That's you. Every scar is a signature. Every heartbreak is now part of your emotional architecture. Researchers from McGill University found that people who've endured adversity, not just avoided it, tend to be more empathetic, more emotionally resilient, and better at managing stress. In other words, the pain didn't just hurt you. It prepared you. And here's the kicker, your pain is now a superpower because it helps others. You can spot suffering in someone else like a lighthouse ships in the fog. You've earned that kind of vision the hard way. While the world applauds youth for their energy, it forgets to applaud you for your endurance, for your ability to hold your ground when everything's falling apart, for the way you've learned to breathe through grief, sit with silence, and find peace in things that used to terrify you. That's not weakness. That's strength with a memory. So next time you're tempted to minimize your past, remember this. You didn't just survive. You grew roots, deep ones. And now, when life gets chaotic, you don't get blown away. You stand still because you've been through worse. And you're still here. Nobody talks about this. 60 is a creative peak. Here's a weird question. Why do we assume creativity belongs to the young? Like somehow, after 40, your imagination just packs up and goes to Florida? Spoiler, that's a myth. And the truth is a lot more interesting. A study from the University of Chicago analyzed the creative output of thousands of inventors, artists, and scientists, and found something unexpected. Many of the most groundbreaking ideas came not in their 20s, but in their 50s, 60s, and even 70s. Why? Because creativity isn't just spark, it's structure. And that's what time gives you. Take Grandma, Moses. She started painting at 78 and became one of America's most beloved folk artists. Or Colonel Sanders, the KFC guy who launched his franchise at 65 after decades of failure. Or Frank Lloyd Wright, who designed his most iconic building, the Guggenheim Museum, at age 76. What changed? They stopped trying to impress. They started creating from truth. You see, when you're young, you create to be seen. When you're older, you create to say something real. And that shift from ego to essence is where true creativity lives. And neurologically, this makes sense. Older brains make wider, richer connections between past and present, memory and meaning. Your mind has decades of sensory input to draw from. You're not starting from scratch, you're remixing a lifetime. Guess what? You don't need to paint a masterpiece or invent the next iPhone. Creativity could mean writing a poem, gardening with wild abandon, or reinventing how you tell your life story. It's not about the product, it's about the spark. And that spark, it's still alive. No, scratch that, it's smoldering. Waiting for you to finally say, I'm done asking permission. You don't have to prove anything anymore. Remember being 25? Constantly trying to prove you were smart enough, strong enough, worthy enough. hustling to be liked, respected, noticed. Exhausting, right? But here's the incredible part of hitting your 60s, you're finally off the hook. You don't have to prove anything to anyone, not anymore. There's a strange kind of power that comes with age. It's not loud. It doesn't strut. It just is. Because you've seen enough, lost enough, and earned enough scars to realize that the game was rigged from the start. The race to be the best, it never ends. But now you're not running anymore. You're walking with purpose. You're choosing. Where to step. In psychology, this shift is called ego transcendence. It's when people begin to care less about external validation and more about internal meaning. You stop asking, do they like me? And start asking, do I like myself? And this isn't just some new age fluff. A study from Yale University found that older adults who embrace this phase of life, focusing less on status and more on contribution, report higher life satisfaction and lower depression rates than those still chasing recognition. Let's be honest, you've already been impressive. You've raised kids, built careers, paid bills through recessions, and stayed standing through things that would have crushed the younger you. What more proof do you need? So the next time someone tries to question your value, smile. Because they don't realize they're playing checkers, and you're playing chess, quietly, elegantly, with moves they haven't even learned yet. You've got nothing to prove. And that makes you the most dangerous person in the room. The power of nothing left to lose. What would you do if you had absolutely nothing left to lose? That question terrifies most people except those who've actually been there. And odds are, if you're in your 60s, you've tasted that moment. Maybe more than once. But here's the twist. That moment didn't weaken you. It made you untouchable. There's a strange freedom that comes when the old fears don't work on you anymore. You're no longer terrified of failure because you've failed and survived. You're not obsessed with being liked because you've learned how exhausting it is to perform for people who never clapped anyway. And you're not scared of change because you've lived through enough of it to know you're adaptable as hell. Psychologists call this post-traumatic growth, a phenomenon where people who've endured major challenges often experience a powerful rebound in courage, clarity, and personal strength. You don't bounce back the same. You bounce back wiser, meaner, and more focused. Think of it this way. When you're younger, you build armor to protect yourself from the world, but by 60, you realize you don't need armor. You are the armor dot, and suddenly the things that used to scare you, starting something new, walking away from toxic people, speaking your truth, don't seem so scary anymore. Why? Because you've already lost things you thought you couldn't live without, and you're still here, Dot. So maybe the real power of your 60s isn't in how much you still have, but in how much you've let go, Dot. Let go of the noise. Let go of the nonsense. Let go of the need to apologize for existing. That's not giving up. That's leveling up. 60 is the age of living truthfully. Here's the funny thing about aging. The older you get, the more allergic you become to bees, especially your own. When you were younger, you probably said yes when you meant no, stayed quiet to keep the peace, wore the mask just to fit the room. But now you crave truth like oxygen. You've spent decades playing roles, employee, parent, partner, fixer, forgiver, and finally you're asking, but who am I when nobody's watching? That's not a midlife crisis. That's a breakthrough. Researchers at the University of British Columbia have found that as people reach their 60s, They experience what's called authentic self-realization, a psychological shift where you start prioritizing alignment over approval. It's not about being reckless. It's about being real. You stop saying, I should, and start asking, do I want to? And that changes everything. Suddenly, you're not afraid to cut ties with toxic relationships. You finally decorate your home the way you want it. You go gray, go natural, or go bold, and not because it's trendy, but because it's you. In a world obsessed with filters and likes, authenticity becomes a revolution. And at 60 plus, you are the rebel. Not because you're fighting the system, but because you've outgrown it. Let the world chase youth. Let them panic over wrinkles and retweets. You've got something rarer. Peace with yourself. You're not trying to be a version of someone else's dream anymore. You're living your own with eyes wide open, spine straight, and no apologies. And that, my friend, is what it really means to live. That's all for today. I'll be making more videos like this in the future. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out.